Hello there, and welcome back to Winning the Division, episode number 6 on a Tuesday. We are recording this due to some things with Hurricane Helena that affected a lot of people here in the Carolinas, along with Georgia and Florida. So, before we start anything football related, we just wanted to send our thoughts and prayers to all those affected with Hurricane Helena. Ben lives in Georgia, I live in North Carolina. So, two of the areas that were impacted were parts of our state specifically. If you do want to donate, the NFL has partnered with the Red Cross. You can go to redcross.org to donate. For any help is appreciated. Obviously, thoughts and prayers to all communities as the surrounding areas in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, and Florida hit hard by Hurricane Helena, and just building back the communities, and just the devastation is just mind-boggling to see in some of the areas. Ben, I know you were personally affected a little bit, not you directly, but some other people that you know were close to this as well.
Absolutely. My hometown is Swainsboro, Georgia. When my sister was living in the Augusta Evans area, and all of Southeast Georgia, Richmond Hill, Savannah, Brunswick, all the Valdosta. Our hearts and prayers goes out to the people because there's so much devastation that went on. I think sometimes, Ryan, we are very, very blessed to be able to do what we do. And then when a natural disaster comes, the biggest question is, why don't people just leave? Well, people don't have the means. And when you start talking about hundreds of thousands of people trying to go north, well, it traveled north. It went from Florida to Georgia. As you mentioned, Carolina's where you are. But what the NFL is doing with the Red Cross, I just commend them because it's so much. Let me say this: we'll never ever get back to normal. Whatever normal was before, it's probably because even Smitty was something you were telling about. There are cities that are decimated. They're nothing like you remember them ever being. But the best thing we can do is lend a hand. There are going to be so many people that's going to need generators, water, dry items that don't have to go be refrigerated. Do your best to try to, lend money, lend a hand, lend your time, lend your support, because like I said, this is something that devastated areas as high up as North Carolina, South Carolina, that's never dealt with this type of, catastrophe and natural disaster. But yes, our hearts and prayers goes out. But make sure if you know somebody you need, give them a call, man, because there are people who still trying to get in contact with their family members, which is totally different. But hey, from everybody here, me and Smitty from our winning division, we're gonna definitely do our part as much as we possibly can. But yes, it's just something I never ever thought I would see. But I'm gonna do my part in lending a hand and my support as much as I possibly can. And Smitty, I know you're gonna be doing the same.
Yeah. Well, a hard transition to football from Hurricane Helena, but we'll try our best. We had some games in week number 4 as the NFL season coming to a close and going on to week 5. But let's discuss week 4 first before we move onward. We are starting a news segment in this beginning part of the episode. We're going to call it our Players of the Week. So players that we think are, or teams that we think did a good job this week, and almost like a game ball, if you will. And then we're going to also have our not so players of the week, or position units, teams, whatever you want to call it. So Ben, I will let you go first. Who is your player or players of the week?
My players of the week are Jaden Daniels. For the Commanders, 26-30, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 8 rushes for 47 yards, 5.9 rushes a carry for a touchdown. The great Jared Goff. Look, when you go 18 for 18, I mean, what else can you say when you talk about the performance that he had on Monday Night Football? They put on a clinic against, the Seahawks. And number 3, listen, Younghoe Koo. Look, I mean, yeah, I was at the game, 58 yards. He went 4 for 4 for 100 yards, along with 58 to turn the lights out. I mean, been clutch since he got to Atlanta. But yeah, Younghoe Koo. You talk about Jaden Daniels. You talk about Jared Goff. And obviously my honorable mention is the one Derrick Henry. 87 yards on one play. I think I had almost 200 yards for the game. Give the ball to Derrick Henry and take some of the load off of one Lamar
Jackson. Well, Derrick Henry was my player of the week. I mean, that man 87-yard touchdown run to start the game. I mean, that alone, I said, he's got my vote right here. I'm done. And that was before Jared Goff did his perfect game. I realized that almost. But Derrick Henry was a man's among boys out there, as he normally is when he suits up at running back. And He full disclosure, 43 points against me in fantasy this week as well. So that was
43? Jesus.
yes, 43. I still won the league, by the way, because my roster is so good. I'm humble brag there. But anyway, so that was my player number 1 of the week. And then my player number 2, going a little bit under the radar because, again, and it was against my Panthers. We'll get there. Jamar Chase, he makes people look silly. I was not at the game, but he had a play where, yes, the Panthers tackling was pretty shoddy, but he made like 5 people run into each other, and then he just kind of like scooted down the sideline for a 63-yard touchdown run. It was about a 10-yard gain that should have been a slant route for some yak for like 10 yards first down, but nope, he takes it to the 50 and then to the house. Jamar Chase, did that at LSU. He did that now at Cincinnati. So yeah, he only had 3 catches for 85 yards and a touchdown. You're like, well, Ryan, how is that player of the week? Well, the reason that's player of the week for me, my co-player of the week, I should say, is he makes people miss. These are world-class athletes that are doing things that are making other pro athletes, some good athletes in this Panthers team, J.C. Horn, Xavier Woods, and company, missing like they're high schoolers. And Jamar Chase can make people look silly. And so he is my other co-player of the week with Derrick Henry. Now, let's get to our not players of the week or units of the week. So I'll go first this time. I'm just going to call it like it is. I got 2. The Miami Dolphins offensive unit. That game was a travesty to watch. I personally did not watch a lot of it, but from the stats and the little bit I did watch, you'll be glad you didn't spend your 3 hours watching that game in its entirety if you were not a Dolphins or a Titans fan, unless you were one of those 2 categories. I mean, listen to this. Every time you thought that it couldn't get any worse, it just kept getting worse. Tyler Huntley, now he made up for it in the end. He got a touchdown run in the fourth quarter, 8 carries, 40 yards, and a touchdown. But if we just go to the stats and just look at the stats from this game, the Dolphins scored 12 points, the majority of those coming in the fourth quarter. And as my stats are not loading at this current moment, that's okay. I don't need the stats. What I need to tell you is that the offense was absolutely abysmal for the Miami Dolphins. Mike McDaniel said there was going to be changes this week. And listen, I get it. They're down to their 3rd quarterback. No Tua, no Skylar Thompson. But there's just no excuse in the NFL when you're playing an 0-3 Titans team at home to put up that type of performance. So that's number 1. And number 2, I thought they had the game won, and they clearly let, as Dennis Green used to say, let them off the hook. But they are who we thought they were. They let them off the hook. The Jacksonville Jaguars, Coach Doug Peterson. We'll talk about this. At the end of the game, he went to the podium and he said, coaches got to coach, yes, but we can't go out there and run the plays for them. That's essentially what he said. And so as a former player, we'll get there as far as what you think from those comments. But Jacksonville snatched victory, we thought, and then the jaws of defeat said, no, I'm going to bring this victory back. And that's what happened as C.J. Stroud was clinical on the last drive, and they did not get the W. They're now 0-4 on the season. So Jacksonville Jaguars are my not-so player or units of the week.
Listen, my units that need to listen. If we got players of the week, we got the players or units that need to step up. My 3 units that need to step up will be the offensive line of the Eagles, the Jets, and the Patriots. Jalen Hurts was running for his life all day. Aaron Rodgers lost to the Broncos, not because of him, but because of the offensive line. And Jacoby Bosa and company are still living in his head. People say, well, how many sacks did they give up? The Eagles O-line gave up 6 sacks. The Jets O-line gave up 5 sacks. The Patriots O-line gave up 5.5 sacks. Listen to me. Those are just winning that play. So if you talk about 6, 5, and 5.5, those are the winning rushes. That means that those O-linemen was O-line people just living in the backfield. Vita Vea, a very, very large human being, by the way, was hitting Jalen Hurts like nobody's in front of him. I'm telling you right now, the Denver Broncos defensive line was killing Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he was like, dude, listen, the no-name defense that no one knows. Outside of Patrick Surtain, you don't even know who played for the Denver Broncos, and they were living in the backfield. And this is a group effort. Like I say, 5 guys are usually blocking 4 guys. 4. And no 4-1. So, once again, my need to step it up units are Eagles offensive line, the Jets offensive line, and the Patriots offensive line. How they talked about it on TV, they were talking about these units. They were saying they need better security. So security is like people that protect you. That's what you call O-linemen. Well, they need new security for Jalen Hurts, and Ron Rodgers, and Jacoby Brissett, because they did not earn their money. Those units got to step it up. It is only week 4. Hopefully they'll get better.
I'm going to switch the order tonight. We're going to go now into some transactions, some injuries, and updates before we get into the game specifically. I feel like sometimes we haven't gotten to as many of these as maybe listeners might have wanted us to. So let's get into it. Probably the biggest news of the day transaction-wise, Raiders open to trading Davante Adams, sources say. That is the biggest news of the day. Antonio Pierce even liked an Instagram post that mentioned this. So, Ben, as someone who had a cup of coffee with the Raiders, talk to us about what this means. Do you think Davante Adams will be dealt? And number 2, who is a good team for his services?
I mean, any team can utilize a Davante Adams. I think it's going to come down to not necessarily the price, but you know what they think his trade value is. I mean,
second round pick is what they're asking for.
Okay, so I think that's more than fair. You get a future second round pick for Davante Adams services. I mean, there's a team in Carolina that can use a receiver.
I know.
I'm just saying. Look. There's a team.
I don't think it's gonna happen, but yes, I know.
There's a team in Atlanta that can use a receiver.
Oh, please, God, no. No, please, no.
Here's the thing. I think the thing about Davante Adams that goes under the radar is how consistent of a player he is when you are keeping him active within the game. I mean, there isn't too many DBs or defenses that he has not shredded or played. So I do think that Antonio Pierce seems to be a no-nonsense guy, and he seems to be a guy that calls it how he sees it. Davante Adams is still, to me, a top 10. He's no longer a top 5 receiver. He's definitely a top 10 when you are keeping him involved. But yeah, Davante Adams get a chance to come to your team, close your eyes and point. I mean, I think anybody, if you cannot utilize it, don't go to Miami, and that's something we'll talk about. Maybe we get a chance to. I don't know how good of a play caller Mike McDaniel is, but people kept saying Mike McDaniels, he got Tua. No, I think Tua might have made Mike McDaniels, because when you look at the win-loss record when Tua is in the lineup and when he's not, it's transparent when he's not in it. It's abysmal. So, but Davante Adams Davante Adams has already shown that he doesn't really want to be with the Raiders because he doesn't have consistent quarterback play, and I think he's thinking about legacy more now than anything else. And hey, I guarantee you this: I would be surprised if the Jets didn't throw a lot at him. I know they got Mike Williams in the offseason, but I think they'll try to put something together to get him, because you get him back, with Wilson and Williams and Adams, man. I don't know if that's going to mean they're going to win more games, but the offense could definitely show some more fight. Because right now, the Jets offense is looking real similar to the Dolphins offense. It is hard to watch.
Yeah. The other big news, not necessarily today, but from yesterday, was Rashee Rice going down. We still don't know if it is a torn ACL. Tests are inconclusive on that. They're still gathering information. But it does sound like they are going to potentially trade for a receiver or sign somebody as well. Talks have been mentioning Tyreek Hill maybe coming back to the Chiefs. There's also talk of Amari Cooper. There's talk of DeAndre Hopkins. Those are some names that are just being floated out there. But Ben, if you're the Chiefs, do you sign somebody off the street, or do you trade for somebody like I mentioned, or Deontay Johnson for the Panthers has been floated around as well? I don't think that one's going to happen personally as a Panther fan. But what are your thoughts on this?
I think you try to find a way to exhaust every opportunity there is. I do think you sign a veteran, because I think a veteran is going to be easier to gel with. If you cannot gel with Patrick Mahomes, I mean, come on, man. I mean, I don't think Tyreek Hill is going to be a viable option, because he signed a contract extension in the offseason. That's a lot of money to be able to pick up for him. Deontay, I don't think he's going to be an option. Davante Adams is going to be in play. I mean, he's definitely a guy that can help any offense.
Would they trade him to a rival, though? Would they do that?
They wouldn't. I mean, they wouldn't, because I think Davante Adams still has a lot of juice left in the tank. I mean, he's still a really, really good receiver. But it's the Kansas City Chiefs. They're going to have to be really, really creative. Not creative from a standpoint of getting people to want to come to Kansas City, like the type of money they have left, because you are paying a lot of guys. You talk about Patrick Mahomes, right? You talk about Chris Jones. I mean, you talk about guys that are really, really getting paid some big money right now. But, I mean, they're down their number one receiver right now. I like Xavier Worthy and him, and I know he caught a bomb, on Sunday, but that's not going to be the norm. Those things are going to get back. They're going to respect his speed, but I do think they're going to have to get a receiver, because Xavier Worthy, as long as he has veteran receivers around him, doesn't have to be the main guy. So I do think you got to get a veteran in there. And if there are some guys out there on the street that still looking for, that still got some left in the tank at receiver, but Tyreek Hill, no. John Thompson, no. I think Devontae Adams is probably going to be a viable option, but like I say, that's a big contract you got to pick up. He still owe a lot of money in that deal.
The last big picture injury / transaction before we get to some of the more daily ones today. We don't have a lot more news on Christian McCaffrey. However, he is back from Germany after seeing a specialist there, and it remains to be seen when he's going to be coming back. So if you're the 49ers, if you're in the front office for the 49ers, it sounds like they've known about this for a while. Obviously, as a Panthers fan, I know McCaffrey's injury history going back to his time here in Charlotte. Talk to me about if you're McCaffrey, you want to be on the field. You want to be there as soon as possible. But with Achilles tendonitis, there's a possibility of a tear if you come back way too soon. Number two, he's now got it in both legs. Both legs. One worse than the other, definitely. But have you had Achilles tendonitis, Ben, number one? And two, what do you think is going through his head in the 49ers front office right now? Do they get it back for the playoffs? Is that their goal at this point? Is it let's shut him down for the season and hope he can come back next season? What's the point? Or what's the goal here? What's the end game?
Well, I've never had Achilles tendonitis. I did have plantar fasciitis in my foot, and I didn't even know what it was when I was trying to experience it. You wake up in the morning, you can't move your foot. And by the time it was during the off season when I was with the Bucs. So by the time the off season came, it's not like you got a lot of wear and tear. You got to do workouts, but it's not like you're doing a lot of football activities. You working out now. But by the time we got to training camp is when I couldn't bear, because you're going day in and day out pounding on your foot. And by the time I found out what plantar fasciitis was, I went from plantar fasciitis to a heel bruise. So then I couldn't put no pressure on my foot, and I couldn't put no pressure on my heel. And then, but Achilles tendonitis, number one, you're dealing with two different things, and a guy that gets a workload like Christian McCaffrey, it's almost like the worst possible injury. It's like having it's like having Tommy John surgery when you're a big time pitcher. It's rough because when he's out there working out, as hard as he's working out, that's not football. That's not going as hard as you possibly go every single play. And I think for Christian McCaffrey, you got to be very careful, because yes, you want to get him back in 2024. Yes, you think San Francisco is going to be there in the end with the type of team they have top to bottom. When you get back, when you start talking about getting back Debo and Ayuk and having everybody at full strength. Here's the dangerous part. If he does re-injure it, we're talking about an Achilles. Most players don't come back from Achilles, because he has an Achilles tendonitis. Think about this though, Smitty. He's not going to Germany because he's hearing good news in the States. Whoever was talking to him here did not tell him what he wanted to hear. And I think the thing about him is, CMAC is, these doctors at a certain point, some of them aren't fans. They're telling him, look, what do you do again? Oh, my name is Christian McCaffrey. I'm gonna start running back. Oh, okay, look. Let me show you what we see. So that way I can show you what I see and what I'm giving you advice on. He's going to have to be really, really careful, because his workload is crazy in the passing game, in the running game. And when I say passing, I'm talking about pass blocking as well as catching, as well as running. I think it's going to be more towards the latter half of the season, because you're trying to give him as long as they're winning games, they can just, all right. I could see if they weren't being competitive and they're not nowhere in the playoff hunt, they're going to be in the hunt. And I think you got to, and he signed a contract extension in the offseason to make him the highest paid running back. Yeah. So I think the best thing you do if you are John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, you have to err on the side of caution, because Smitty, if he comes up limp, forget the rest of 2024. This could go into 2025. Because Achilles is always different, because you're never going to be the same player, and until you get out there, you don't know. So I think they err on the side of caution. I do think he tried to play this year, but I think it's more in the second half. That's why when you got 17 games, that's a lot of. You still got a lot of season left, even once you get past week 8.
Yeah, and for those who may not be familiar, so yes, as I heard it on one of the podcasts from Michael Lombardi, he talked about this. The reason why players like McCaffrey go over to Germany is because some of the doctors over there don't have to have FDA approval like we have in the States. And so that's ultimately the what things over there might work a little differently than it does in the States. So just that whole FDA process the United States has, that's kind of the reason why some of these players take some of those alternate routes like McCaffrey is doing there in Germany. All right, so let's get to some of the later headlines today around the league. Bills defensive end Von Miller suspended 4 games for violating the anti-substance abuse policy.
Wow.
We've got Odell Beckham set to participate in his first practice with the Dolphins here later this week.
Listen, I forgot all about he was with the Dolphins at this point.
Yep. Cowboys defensive end DeMarcus Lawrence going on IR with a Liz Frank injury.
So hold on, finally, DeMarcus Lawrence and Micah Parsons?
That's correct. Yeah, Micah Lawrence, it sounds like Micah's is a little less serious than Lawrence's from what I can tell, but there's not as much definitiveness on Micah's injury as of right now. And then finally, Titans defensive tackle Jeffrey Simmons returns from Tommy John surgery this week. He missed the Miami Dolphins win on Monday night. So some of your reactions to some of the ones I just said.
I mean, DeMarcus Lawrence, the Liz Frank, as a person that had to deal with a lot of foot injuries at my time in the National Football League, a Liz Frank is almost like a Liz Frank is like you break the top of your foot. That's the strongest bone in your foot. He's done for the year. Even because you got to think about surgery, then rehab. Micah Parsons, obviously Micah Parsons means a lot to that team and that defense. He's probably gonna be a week by week. They're gonna probably take a couple of weeks to give him a chance to try to come back. Jeffrey Simmons. I didn't even know he had Tommy John, so I am happy that he is back. He is the best player for the Tennessee Titans, and he's the guy that makes that entire defense, definitely that D line go. And that's the thing, Smitty. Injuries are happening not just every week, every day. You hear about players in practice that they have tweaks and this, that, and third. When you got people, listen, when you got guys 200, 210, 220, 230, 250, 300 moving and stopping and starting. Grown people aren't meant to do that at the speed in which they're doing it. And you talk about leaning on guys every single play. Sometimes your body just gives out. Sometimes injuries happen because your body said, dude, I can't take it anymore. There are more non-contact ACL, MCL, and PCL tears than it ever is when people make a contact. Sometimes you see a knee just buckle to the left, buckle to the right. But injuries are a part of the game, unfortunately. I just think that when you talk about what makes Kansas City good, they keep 15 clean because they know he is the face of the National Football League. That is Patrick Mahomes, for those of you who live under a rock. But I think that when it comes to injuries, I know we were talking about Christian McCaffrey earlier. Christian McCaffrey is in a position to be able to go to Germany because of how much money he has. But let me tell you another reason why he go to Germany that people ain't saying. Back when Terrell Owens played for the Philadelphia Eagles and he like broke his leg or whatever, he wanted to play in the Super Bowl. There were doctors that would not work on him because he's coming and saying, I better play in the Super Bowl. People say, well, why is that important? NFL players can sue people too. I'm Christian McCaffrey. Not saying he's going to do this. I'm Christian McCaffrey. I go in and I get my diagnosis. And you telling me, hey, man, you do this, you'll be back by this week. And I'm not. It's stipulations. Now, Germany, I don't know what their stipulations are, but there are doctors in the state who are scared to death of certain players because they don't want any legalities if and when the injury doesn't, have a expedient healing process. So you have to factor all those type of things. I don't know Christian McCaffrey, never met him, big fan of his dad when he played with the Broncos, but I'm just saying, be on the lookout. If Ryan Smith has his own practice and Christian McCaffrey walks into his office while you know who he is, you cut him open. There's different ramifications because he's getting cut open with a timeline to get back on the field. And sometimes bodies just don't respond the way you want them to.
Yep. The last 3 that I had on my notes here, Browns defensive tackle Mike Hall Jr. suspended 5 games without pay, violating the league's personal conduct policy. He had some legal trouble in September, reduced charge of disorderly conduct from domestic violence in the summer. He was a pick by the Dolphins earlier this year, number 54 overall in April's draft. You've got Shaq Thompson from my beloved Panthers out for the season with a torn Achilles non-contact injury that you mentioned. And Mr. Will Levis is day-to-day with an AC joint. We talked about that also offline before we joined. He did not play in most of the game yesterday, and the Titans went over the Dolphins, left in the first quarter, and then was Mason Rudolph getting most of those snaps for Tennessee.
And I didn't get a chance to mention Von Miller. I mean, him being out for 4 games. I mean, I think with this situation, I mean, the thing about Von Miller, he's no longer the player he used to be, and they're paying him a lot of money to come off the bench. I mean, they're paying him to be a closer, kind of like a third down guy, fourth quarter guy. That's going to hurt them because they're going to go on a deep playoff run, and they're telling him, look, when you first got here, you were still – and he's still Von Miller, future Hall of Famer, all the sacks, different things that he has, but he's not the same player. Now you get suspended. Number one, when you get suspended for a violation, you getting suspended and you getting fined those checks. So he's not getting money for the next 4 weeks. And when you start talking about Shaq going out with the Achilles, like I just said, non-contact. Shaq Thompson has been really, really good since he got drafted, and you just feel bad for a Panthers defense that's still trying to find its identity. Still have some good players, but when you don't got the quarterback of your defense out there, that makes the whole defense different. And I'm just like I said, Shaq is in year like 9 or 10, and
2015. So yeah, I think 9. I think 9 or 10.
Yeah, and I think the thing about Shaq is, how does he? Number one, he's making good money, but he's coming off an Achilles tear. You're never going to be the same after Achilles. Nobody is. And so I think for him, it's going to be about, getting healthy, obviously taking his time. This season is over because the only thing people are coming back from is injuries that happened like in 2023 that lingered into 2024 or like injuries that don't require surgery. I don't even know the dynamic of the Jeffrey Simmons situation with the Tommy John. I don't know how much goes into a Tommy John because he doesn't throw. He definitely needs a shoulder. I'm not saying that, but it's just different. So, but yeah, we can talk. Listen, we can have a show strictly about injuries and transactions. They're happening all the time. GM's jobs are to make sure they know who's available when people get hurt and the best available when those type of situations occur. But I'm looking for speedy recovery for a lot of those guys. Until those guys get suspended 4 games, I mean, it happens, but you can't help the team when you're at home. And like I said, I don't know what Buffalo's going to do with Von Miller, but I do think with him getting suspended and not being the player he is, this might be his last year in Buffalo, not because he doesn't have anything left in the tank. You're paying him a lot of money to not be on the team right now. So for Buffalo, hey, man, outside of when they play Kansas City and Baltimore, they look really, really good.
Let's go ahead and get into some of our best games of week 4. Let's get into the performances that we thought were noteworthy. Let's start with your Falcons there in Georgia. You were at the game. You said Younghoe Koo's 58-yard field goal with 2 seconds left lifts the Falcons over the Saints 26-24. Both teams now sitting at 2-2. We'll talk about Atlanta's upcoming Thursday night game here at the very end. But what are your thoughts on this game overall? Obviously, it looked like the Saints were going to squeak it out, and then the Falcons stole it from them at the very end there with a classic Younghoe Koo kick to beat the buzzer, as he's done that to the Panthers a few times as well.
What I took the most from the game is I think this Atlanta defense has shown itself to be really, really good. I mean, they held Kansas City to 22 points just a week prior, even though they come out on the losing end. They was able to get a goal line stop right before the next drive that the Saints went down and actually scored. They was able to really stop the run. Taysom Hill had 2 rushing touchdowns. He ended up leaving the game with an injury, and Alvin Kamara had a late touchdown at the end of the game. But Younghoe Koo he's a weapon. Anybody that has a good kicker. I still think the best kicker in football, is Tucker out there in Baltimore, even though he's not having the season he's used to having. You're still trying to figure out this Atlanta offense, though, because Kyle Pitts had 0 catches for 0 yards because they got him at receiver more than that tight end. And Kirk Cousins, he's still, he's 4 or 5 weeks into trying to get this offense, going and trying to figure out the nuances of this offense. But Atlanta played complimentary football. It literally came down to the wire. Younghoe had a 58-yarder, and that was game time. But I think the thing about this Falcons team, which, as you mentioned, we're going to talk about their opponent on Thursday night, they're going to have to get more consistent on offense because Tyler, the backup running back, had more yards and more productivity than Bijan Robinson. And I think the thing about Bijan, Smitty, he's so athletic. He's trying to do too, but just hit it downhill. When you try to do too much, look, you're not gonna out-athlete the best athletes in the world. The last time you was the best athlete on the field is when you was at Texas. That's not gonna happen anymore because eventually those defenders are gonna stand right there in front of you. They say, "Listen, man, you can go horizontal all you want. When you come vertical, we're gonna be standing right here." But shout out to the Falcons getting a big win. I think that heartbreaker against Kansas City didn't linger. They was able to get back to their playing ways and a familiar foe with the Saints, who I think their offense is kind of quieted down a little bit, Smitty, because we was thinking, dang man, they looked like world beaters when they played against Dallas, and now they starting to look more like a team that's going to have to figure out who they are. Chris Olave, to me, is a top 10 receiver. They got to find a way to get him the ball more. Alvin Kamara is silky smooth. Derek Carr is still making NFL money, and they got an aging defense. But it was a good game overall, and like I say, on the edge of your seat for 4 quarters.
Yeah. Let's go to Charlotte, where the Panthers lost 34-24 to the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow and company get their first win of the season. Both teams at 1-3 after this game. We talked about Jamar Chase a little bit ago. If you're talking to the people here in Charlotte and the greater North Carolina community, they're encouraged. The loss sucked, but they're encouraged. Just a few options that I'll mention. Xavier Legette, rookie receiver, had his best game as a pro, caught a touchdown. And he was making people miss out there, showed good crisp at the top of his routes. So that's something very advanced for a rookie, being able to kind of box himself out at the top of his routes. You kind of watched him a little bit. Chuba Hubbard, 18 carries for 104 yards and 1 touchdown. Second straight game, over 100 yards for Chuba Hubbard. He's coming into his own. Someone I think the Panthers should re-sign and should not be too expensive to re-sign. And relatively cheap.
And now the going rate for running back Smitty is 3-year deals. They give them 3-year deals. Very, very cap-friendly deals, just in case and when it don't work out, they can both walk away. It's all about the sign-up bonus and the guarantee.
Yeah. Deontay Johnson picking up here where he left off, also caught a touchdown on 7 passes to him. And then, but even though, like I said, the Charlotte area very much encouraged by this game because Panthers had some chances. Fake punt that was executed well, but then dropped by Felipe Franks. Panthers got the ball to start the game. Opening drive went all the way down to the 2-yard line and then got stuffed on 4th and goal, turned over the ball. Those are just 2 examples of 2 plays, that might have gone differently. Who knows if the Panthers, maybe win this game. I was just very impressed with Joe Burrow, man. He is whenever the clock, whether it's, close to 0 or it's start of the game, he has he's very crisp with his passes. He knows exactly where he's going. He hits players in the chin with his passes. This ain't no out in front of him, behind him a little bit. He's very accurate with his passing. Went back to LSU as well in his time there. Someone I just love watching, especially when he's playing the Panthers. It's a joy to watch him just even go against him. Just a great guy, and glad to see him staying healthy as well, as he's had some injuries to kind of start his NFL career and staying healthy this season. So
really, really happy the way Carolina has bounced back the last 2 weeks. And if you are a Carolina fan, you should be very, very excited about what you see, because you see a competitive Carolina Panthers team. Because what used to happen is, and nothing again, not to throw shade against Bryce Young, every time the offense was out there, it just looked like a lot of things was happening. So I just think that when you look at how Carolina has been able to bounce back the last couple of weeks, it's been really, really refreshing. As we mentioned, Shaq does go out with an injury, which things are going to happen. But Chuba, productive. Legette, productive. You talk about Deontay, productive. You're talking about you. Listen, I mean, so I think that what I saw the most in this game is, listen, Cincinnati, they were going to figure it out pretty soon. With Jamar Chase, even though he's in the contract, he still haven't signed his new deal. And you knew the guys like Joe Burrow and company was going to figure it out with a very, very underrated, competitive Cincinnati defense. But as you mentioned, 2 big plays they got away from you. You can't come away with no points on 4th and goal, down in the red zone. And Felipe Franks, the fact that they called a fake punt for him. Felipe Franks, still making a career for himself. You start out in Carolina, now you talk about over there. I mean, started out, I'm sorry, in Atlanta, now over there in Carolina. But you appreciate, Smitty, that losses, no one feels good about a loss, but you feel good about the effort and how they looked in the loss. So, hey, man, like I say, Andy Dalton finds a way to still get it done. And he's making that, not only is he providing balance and stability at the quarterback position, Smitty, he's providing balance on the offense that's helping the defense play complementary. And like I say, you knew Cincinnati was going to figure it out. Jamar Chase, everybody want to talk about Justin Jefferson. Everybody want to talk about Tyreek Hill, right? And rightfully so. A.J. Brown and CeeDee Lamb at his best. Jamar Chase is the top 2 receiver. At his best, he can do whatever he wants, and he does it as silky smooth of a game as Joe Burrow has. That's how silky smooth of a game that Jamar Chase has. But shout out to the Cincinnati Bengals getting a big win. But shout out to Carolina proving 2 weeks in a row, hey, man, we just figuring this thing out, and we looking good even in a losing effort. Shout out to Leggett, though, man. He's going to be a guy that's going to be definitely called upon to more plays called for him as the season continues to go.
Let's make our way to Midway Town. The Chicago Bears pick up the win 24-18 over the LA Rams to get to 2-2 on the year. LA Rams still banged up, 1-3. Just their season, I don't want to say it's over, but it's looking like that. A lot of Stafford mistakes sink the Rams in this game, and LA punted just once where they scored just 18 points. But fun fact from the Bears side, former Panther DJ Moore becomes the first or not the first, I'm sorry. He has caught a touchdown from 3 different number 1 picks: Cam Newton, Caleb Williams, and Baker Mayfield. So a little stat there for those DJ Moore fans out there. Takeaway from this game, which was very sloppy, especially on the Rams side.
Yeah, I agree with what you said about the Rams. They're just a walking wounded right now. They don't have their top 2 receivers. And that's going to hurt, a guy like Matthew Stafford, who's is very, very underrated for what he means to the quarterback position, what he means to that Sean McVay offense. But he only can do so much when he don't have. Yes, I like Tutu Atwell and company, but DeMarcus Robinson and those guys. But it's just tough sledding. Caleb Williams, 17 for 23, 157 yards, 1 touchdown. DeAndre Swift, 16 rushes, 93 yards, 1 touchdown. Johnson, 7 rushes. So you getting quality quarterback. You're getting quality quarterback play for Caleb Williams because he's not turning the football over. And I think they've gotten away from that worrying about is he the 4,000-yard passer. Those things are irrelevant. Like, you're gonna be the first one. Who cares? You want to win games. And he builds confidence, continuity. He builds, as far as winning games. But I do agree. The Rams getting a win at this point is going to mean they're going to have to play like an incredible effort. But I think now they're just trying to go out there and be as competitive as they can. But shout out to Caleb Williams. I mean, winning in the National Football League is hard. Winning as a rookie is even harder. He just happened to be the number 1 overall pick. I mean, they got a touchdown pass. And what I can appreciate about him is he's just staying the course. But DJ Moore, incredible player. I wish it would have worked out for him. Obviously, I mean, when he left Carolina. But hey, man, DJ is finding a way to go out there and be super productive. Got his contract extension in the offseason for the Bears. But shout out to the monsters of the Midway, sticking with their winning ways. And like I say, they're gonna need to keep winning with a Minnesota team that's really, really good and a Green Bay team that could beat anybody right now.
Yep, let's get into that game. You said it. Minnesota 4-0 on the year, goes into Lambeau and knocks off the Packers and Jordan Love's return. Jordan Love much better in the second half than he was in the first half, obviously knocking some rust off. Packers now 2-2 on the year. Vikings were up 28-0 before Green Bay came storming back, and that Brian Flores defense kind of bended a little bit, but not breaking. But Sam Darnold, first quarterback to win and have 2 or more passing touchdowns in each of his first 4 career starts for a team in the Super Bowl era. I mean, Sam Darnold is playing MVP football right now. So what do you think it is with Kevin McVay, Kevin O'Connell? What is it about his coaching style that is just so good for Darnold, and what has him playing so well?
Well, I mean, when you got Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson, that definitely hurts. I mean, Aaron Jones don't hurt, right? He made his return back to Lambeau. But I think what Coach O'Connell does for Sam Darnold is he says, look, man, I'm not looking for you to be anybody but who you are. We're gonna make it so that we're gonna put weapons around you with the running game and Aaron Jones. And I mentioned, like I say, Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, and he gets to be himself. Listen, we're talking about the former number 3 overall pick. It's not like Sam Darnold couldn't play football. Sam Darnold got drafted by the Jets. When was the last time the Jets had a good quarterback? When the last time? Listen, the Jets quarterback position has become like the Cleveland Browns still is because they got Deshaun Watson. I don't know what's going on with him. So it's not the fact that who Sam Darnold is, it's where Sam Darnold got drafted. So Sam Darnold, they bring him out there. I mean, he's been a journeyman as well. He's been out. He's been around. But I think what Sam Darnold want to find a landing spot like a Baker Mayfield, right, where he can thrive, and they're getting the best out of him because they're not putting everything on him. When he was with the Jets, it was all about Sam Darnold, Sam Darnold, Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold goes out there to Minnesota, a team that wasn't expected to do much this season. Now they undefeated, and they're putting him in a position, Smitty, to succeed because they're giving him an offense that he's comfortable in, players that can get open for him. Justin Jefferson still being the number 1, number 2 receiver, not just on the team, but in the country. In the National Football League, a running game that's going to get dollar and a defense. With Jonathan Grenard and those type guys, they can get at Harrison Smith. Is still in the freaking league making plays at safety for the Minnesota Vikings. So I just think that change of venue, change of atmosphere, clean slate. Not about the past, but not the ghost of the past. No pun intended. To Sam Darnold, who said he used to see ghosts. Now he sees receivers, finds a way to get the ball to him. Shout out to him, man. Four teams up. 4 wins. Let's see if he can keep it going.
We mentioned this earlier in our players of the week, or when I said duds of the week with Jacksonville. So let's get to Jacksonville. The Houston Texans escape with a win over the Jacksonville Jaguars, 24-20, as Houston is now 3-1 on the year. Jacksonville 0-4, and let's get to Doug Peterson in his press conference comments. I'll just, as a former player, Ben, I'm just going to let you take the floor on this. I did not play in the NFL, so I can't interpret what Doug Peterson said, but you can. You played in the NFL, so take it away for our listeners who may not know kind of what he was talking about at the podium there. And as a player, if you were in that locker room, what is that?
He's trying to get away from the fact that, yes, he doesn't go out there and he only calls the plays. He doesn't execute the plays. But when coaches start using what I like to call desperate speak, they're speaking very desperate because it's desperate times. You got a quarterback in Trevor Lawrence who you paid a boatload of money in the offseason, and he is 0-7 going back to 2023. His last 7 games, he's lost all of them. And I think we could talk about the defense. We could talk about the lack of offensive production. We could talk about the fact that Evan Ingram is not in the, Evan Ingram meant a lot to that because he was the leading receiver in receptions and yards last year. He's not there. It starts and ends with Trevor Lawrence. And Trevor Lawrence, people don't want to hear this. I'm going to keep saying this. I don't know how good Trevor Lawrence was at Clemson. I know he was good. I don't know how good. Why? Because Travis Etienne, the starting running back for the Jags, is the greatest ACC running back of all time. I'm going to say he's the greatest. That defense that he had, right? With Cleveland Farrell and those guys, right? And Dexter Lawrence and those guys, right? And Christian Wilkins and those guys. Clemson was Clemson. Everybody was watching Clemson then. Who watches Clemson now? And I'm not blaming Trevor Lawrence. I'm just saying the tape doesn't lie. And I think for Doug Peterson knows this. If he doesn't find a way to get it together, he's going to be gone. Not because they're losing, but because he was there to help develop Trevor Lawrence. Trevor Lawrence, when he first got in the National Football League, had Urban Meyer as his head coach. Urban Meyer is one of the greatest college football coaches of all time. When it comes to NFL, he is one of the worst. The record proves it. His tenure there, he wasn't even there the full season. So I think for Doug Peterson, Ryan, yes, he can say certain things because we're professionals and we're not going to talk to the media about if I'm Josh Allen, if I'm Trevon Walker and those guys, I'm not going to come out and say nothing about Doug Peterson. But Doug Peterson sounds like a coach that's about to get fired. That's how he sounds at the podium. And like I said, the same reason why they hire coaches is the same reason why they fire them. If they like you because you a players coach and you fire and you get guys to play, but what happens when that fire and that players coach isn't working? Because Smitty, it's not working. They're not. I get it. They could listen. Should have got a win. It means you lost. And the Jaguars sometimes they don't even look competitive out there sometimes. So hey, Doug Peterson understands as a guy who, obviously won a Super Bowl with the Philadelphia Eagles, and obviously now he's back with the Jacksonville Jaguars. He won a Super Bowl with the Eagles, and it didn't work out there. Like it didn't work out because maybe he peaked and then it went all downhill. I don't know. I don't really know because Jacksonville is not one of the premier teams in the National Football League. They got a premier play. Well, they got a quarterback that they thought was going to be a premier. What? And I'm gonna say this: what they thought Trevor Lawrence was going to be to the Jags is what Cam Newton was for the Panthers. Cam Newton was box office, right? And they get Monday Night Football games, and everybody's watching. I don't know if Trevor Lawrence is that. Trevor Lawrence comparison in the National Football League is Daniel Jones. You look at the stats, the yards, the completion percentage, they're almost identical. The difference is no one expects the G-Men to do anything because they got rid of Saquon Barkley, kept Daniel Jones. They backed up the truck for Trevor Lawrence, and unfortunately, Smitty, he's going to be there a while, but I think he's going to have a new coach either during 2024 as an interim, but I think he's going to have a brand new one in 2025.
Let's get to your boy, Anthony Richardson, and the Indianapolis Colts. Our Florida boy there. Indianapolis 27-24 victory over the Steelers, and the Steelers go down for the first time this year at 3-1 now and 2-2 for the Indianapolis Colts. But Joe Flacco, Mr. Cleveland Brown, now on the Indianapolis Colts, comes in relief of Anthony Richardson. Looks like it's going to be just a slight hit pointer, not going to be too much time at all. So that's the good news there. Justin Fields, third quarterback in Steelers franchise history to have 300-plus passing yards and 50-plus rushing yards in a single game, joining Hall of Famer Bobby Lane and Cordell Stewart. So talk to me about this game. Obviously, Anthony Richardson going out is not ideal. Justin Fields is playing good ball. What does Richardson got to do to stay on the field? I'm just going to ask that question. I think you've answered this for the listeners already, but maybe in past weeks. But the guy's got to learn how to stay on the field. And I think that comes with experience. But Joe Flacco is certainly there. He's certainly viable if he ever goes out again.
Anthony Richardson's going to have to realize he can't out-athlete people. Because sometimes, when you're that big, listen, when you say that big, that fast, that strong, that's every other player of the National Football League. And I think for Anthony Richardson, because of what he can do, that don't mean he should do it. Joe Flacco showed Anthony Richardson that, look, young fella, I know I'm 8 days older than your mom. I heard him
that was a great quote. Yeah.
It was. He said, Joe Flacco was telling Anthony Richardson, when I'm sitting in the pocket, yes, I don't have the athleticism that you do, but I sit in the pocket and I get the ball to my receivers, the Pittman and company. You're so ready to improvise. And I'm going to say this. Anthony Richardson plays a lot like Bryce Young. They always trying to improvise. You don't have to. You improvise when the pocket breaks down. Not just going through your reads, going through 1, 2, and 3. You got to learn how to play the position. And just because that's what you got drafted as, and that's who you are, you got to go out there and produce. Because at a certain point, Smitty, just like, listen, what happened with Bryce Young should be a wake-up call to these young quarterbacks and say, look, we're going to play you, but dude, Joe Flacco comes in and the offense is clicking. I think if Anthony Richardson plays the whole game, I think the Steelers win the game. I don't think because I think he forces a mistake to, TJ Watt gets a strip sack or something like that. Anthony Richardson, I think, is going to be a good quarterback, but he's going to have to learn how to play the quarterback position. You know who he needs to look at? Not for to play like him. Just look at Lamar Jackson. Look at the way he plays. He's not running with his head cut off. He's running when he has to, and he's getting the ball to his receivers. And he's getting back to now. I mean, he got Jonathan Taylor, and I'm talking about Anthony Richardson. Hand the ball off to Jonathan Taylor, do the play action pass, find a way. Because it's not going to matter if every other week he's got a nick. You got nicks because you're getting hit all the time. And I understand in the pocket, but I think for Anthony Richardson, he's got to realize, look, man, you look like a Greek guy with your shirt off. Who cares? If you're not kneeling on the ball in victory at the end of games, that means either the game got won by the other team or you're hurt. And you cannot make the club in the tub. And like I say, the one thing about Anthony Richardson is he has to prove that he can play 17 games. Excuse me.
Let's get into Saquon Barkley. We mentioned him a little bit ago, and the Philadelphia Eagles going down 33-16 to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. First in the NFC South are those Bucs once again, 3-1 on the year. Philadelphia 2-2. Lavonte David led an impressive Bucs defense during this day. Saquon Barkley and company just trying to keep their head above water as they were down Devontae Smith. They were down A.J. Brown. Jalen Hurts not looking like his same self since Shane Steichen took that Colts job. But hey, Mike Evans, franchise's all-time leading scorer, passing Martin Gramatica, former kicker for the Bucs, as of yesterday, with 596 points.
Mike Evans finds a way to be about his. His name is Mr. His name is Mike Consistent Evans because he is about as consistent as you can be. I mean, Baker Mayfield, 30 of 47, 347 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. He threw the ball 47 times, completed 30 of them. Saquon Barkley, he had an okay day, but they was playing from behind. We mentioned earlier when we had the step up group, that would be the Eagles offensive line. They did not help Jalen Hurts and company all week. And like I said, as much as I love Saquon Barkley, the guy that makes the offense go is A.J. Brown. He is the one that makes it go because he's instant offense, and we don't know when he's going to come back because you're going to once again sign a contract extension in the offseason. So they're gonna err on the side of caution. But shout out to them Bucs. They put it on the Eagles. And I think the thing about this Eagles team that's most disappointing, it's not the fact that Jalen Hurts don't block for himself. You got all these guys on defense, right? You got 1, 2. You had 2 sacks. Now think about it. You couldn't keep the Bucs D line off of Jalen Hurts. You got Jalen Carter, right? You got Jordan Davis. You got Graham. You got Nakobe Dean. You got Darius Slay. You got Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. And the defense they be running through this Eagles defense like Swiss cheese. I don't know what the problem is with the Eagles defense, but we will always want to look to the offense, Smitty. But this defense for the Eagles, they're kind of so they're like middle of the road. They kind of like a good when they good, bad when they bad. Don't really have an in between. But shout out but it's all about the Bucs. The Bucs dominated from the opening ding. And shout out to Mike, like I said, shout out to Mike Evans. We always talking about the Devontae Adams, the Justin Jeffersons, the Jamar Chases, the Tyreek Hills. Mike Evans, I don't know what year 10 for him, 1,000-yard season. And what does he have that Justin Jefferson don't have? What does he have that Devontae Adams don't have? What does he have that Jamar Chase don't have? A super duper bowl. Shout out to that man, continuing to get it done.
Game that was not shown in a lot of markets, but I watched it on the Red Zone for a little bit. Washington Commanders, the surprise of the NFL, 3-1 on the year, take down the Arizona Cardinals 42-14, and former coach Cliff Kingsbury rocks into the desert as the Jaden Daniels show rolls on. And Daniels, 70-plus completion percentage, 35-plus rushing yards in each of his first 4 NFL games. Just Lamar Jackson, the only other player in NFL history with such a streak at any point in their career.
Jaden Daniels is him. As far as like right now, he's him. Because Smitty, you asked me earlier about what makes Coach O'Connell's team and offense suit what Sam Darnold wants to do. Cliff Kingsbury. What Jaden Daniels is for Cliff Kingsbury is what he wanted Kyler Murray to be. Only he was a head coach then calling plays when he was out there with the Arizona Cardinals. What Jaden Daniels is good at doing is listen. He's always an improvised player, but he also is a rhythm player. He goes through his reads, right? He doesn't put himself in harm's way when he does run the ball. He's not a big guy, right? He's not a thick guy.
He's got a Bryce Young frame.
Yes. But the difference is, look, he showed you that cannon on Monday night coming with him. He got a cannon. He can get it to you. But he's having fun, and he's not playing like a rookie. No, I expect him to show some rookie moments, but 70%, over 70% completion percentage. When you talk about what he's doing, he's staying ahead of the chains. He's not putting the offense in harm's way. He's not doing things that's hurting the Commanders. They're number 1 right now in the division. With a Dallas Cowboy team that's banged up, with a New York Football Giants team that can only beat bad teams, and an Eagles team that has a defense that can't stop nobody. Shout out to Jaden Daniels, man. He's finding a way to get it done. And like I said, Cliff Kingsbury got a second chance at life. Only this time he got the number 2 overall pick. His name is first name Jaden, last name Daniels. Hey man, I just call him JD Smooth because his game is silky smooth.
Yeah. Before we preview week 5, let's get to the 2 primetime games. We got Baltimore Ravens 35-10 over the Buffalo Bills as Derrick Henry, as we talked about earlier, my player of the week. Lamar Jackson putting on a show as well. Derrick Henry's 87-yard touchdown run, longest of in Ravens history, second longest scrimmage touchdown in Ravens history. Joe Flacco's 95-yard pass to Mike Wallace back in 2016 is the longest. However, the third longest rushing touchdown in Henry's career, both coming with the Titans, 99 yards and 94 yards, respectively. So,
I think the 99 and the 94 both came against the Jaguars, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, there you go. So 3-1 on the season for the Bills, 2-2 for the Ravens. Bills got some humble pie, but hey, it's early in the season, as Josh Allen said. They'll take their medicine, they'll be okay. But when Baltimore's playing like this, it's lights out for maybe everybody else except Kansas City.
Lamar Jackson, 13 of 18, 156 yards, 2 touchdowns. That's very, very efficient. And when you talk about Derrick Henry, 24 rushes, 199 yards, 8.3 yards to carry, 1 touchdown. What the Ravens showed is how dangerous they can be when they are firing on all cylinders. We want to make it about the offense, but the defense for the Ravens, they shut Buffalo's offense down. Humphrey and those guys, they said, look, you're not going to get anything. Roquan Smith and those guys said, you're not going to get anything today. See, we get so caught up in these numbers. Look at Lamar Jackson, though. 13 of 18. He threw the ball 18 times, 156 yards, very modest, 2 touchdowns, right? Then you're talking about Derrick Henry, 24 rushes, 199 yards, 1 touchdown. Then you're talking about Lamar Jackson, 6 rushes, 54 yards, 1 touchdown. So your star players accounted for 4 touchdowns. Lamar Jackson had 2 in the air, 1 on the ground, with Derrick Henry having 1 on the ground. It's going to be hard. If the Baltimore Ravens are playing with the lead, they're going to be hard to beat because their defense is really, really good. And what makes the defense great? When the offense is balling. When the offense is balling, and I think Coleman, second round pick out of Florida State, he had a big drop that could have been a potential, game changer for the Buffalo Bills. They said something about this offense is not about stats because in one game you might not get the ball, but one time next game you might get it 10 times. But I think for Buffalo, this is what Buffalo had to ask themselves. As great as Josh Allen is, and he is great, 3 guys he cannot beat: Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes. Who is he going to have to beat to win Super Bowls? Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes. So as great as he is, and he is great, if you can't beat the players at your position when you play their teams, it's going to be much to do about nothing. He is the man for Buffalo. I ain't trying to throw no shade, but if you can't beat those guys, you're going to be saying to yourself, what could have been the same way Buffalo owns Miami is the same way Kansas City, Cincinnati, and Baltimore own Buffalo.
And we end week 4, 42-29 victory for the Detroit Lions over the previously undefeated Seattle Seahawks. Both teams now 3-1 on the season, as Goff was a perfect 18 of 18, as you said, 292 yards, 2 touchdowns, including a 70-yarder to Jameson Williams that capped off his beautiful night there in Seattle. Geno Smith did not do too bad as well. He was he 133 yards on the ground for Kenneth Walker III as well. But Geno Smith he was given every ounce of effort, but he was under pressure a lot last night as well. But Jared Goff, first quarterback in NFL history to attempt more than 10 passes in a game without throwing an incompletion.
This comes down to balance, Smitty. 18 for 18, which means I only threw the ball 18 times. I completed for 2 touchdowns. Right. Then you start talking about St. Brown. They did the Philly special. He was 1 for 1. And then you talk about Jahmyr Gibbs, 14 rushes, 78 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Montgomery, 12 rushes, 40 yards, and a touchdown. So now we're talking about, what is that? That's 6 touchdowns. Here's the thing, though. You talk about Geno. Geno threw the ball 56 times. 56 times. It's going to be hard to win like that because, number one, that means you're playing from behind. You 38 of 50, 395 yards. That's great. Walker had 3 touchdowns. He rushed the ball 12 times, 80 yards, 3 touchdowns. DK Metcalf, 7 for 104. This Seahawks team is good. They're a good team. I just think that Detroit is just a better team right now. And while Seattle has their culture, Detroit has a solid culture as well. But I'm happy for Jared Goff. Former number 1 overall pick, really got drafted by the Rams. Every time he's faced Matthew Stafford, he's beat him twice. Beat him last year in 2023, beat him this year in 2024. I think what's dangerous about this Detroit Lions team is the same thing I said about the Ravens. When they are balanced, 18 passes, for Jared Goff. You talk about Jahmyr Gibbs, 2 touchdowns, spreading the ball around, because Aiden Hutchinson in that defense and, Alexander Loney, shout out to that Florida Gator, by the way, they play really, really good defense as well. But shout out to Detroit, finding a way to keep winning. They are the heart and soul of what Coach Campbell is. Coach Campbell is a hard-nosed type coach. I mean, you're talking about a city like Detroit, hard hat type town. I like what Detroit is showing. Like I say, it's all about staying healthy, playing good football, and right now Detroit is doing both.
So before we put the ribbon on week number 4 and go to week 5 with Thursday Night Football, Bucks, Falcons, and the ATL, I'll give you a chance to tell the listeners whether it's a game that I didn't talk about or a player that you wanted to highlight. So I'll give you the games I didn't touch, and you can tell me what you think. Broncos over the Jets, 10-9. 49ers over the Patriots, 30-13. Raiders over the Browns, 20-16. And I believe that, and then obviously Cowboys 2015 from Thursday night over the Giants. Deshaun Watson, Drake May, anybody you want to talk about before we move on to week number 5 that I maybe didn't get to? Are we overreacting, underreacting? What do you got?
I would definitely say Broncos over the Jets. I think the thing about Bo Nix and what he's doing right now is he's playing smart football. I think the thing about the Jets, though, Smitty, is everybody thought that Aaron Rodgers was going to change the whole dynamic for this organization. He's not. The Jets have a identity problem. We know what they are supposed to be on defense, and they got a good defense. I mean, when you start talking about the different players that they have, on there, Quincy Williams, you start talking about Sauce Gardner and those guys. But what's going on with this offense, for the Jets? I said the Jets offense, if you close your eyes, you're like, is that the Jets or is that the Dolphins? They both look bad. The difference is the quarterback from Miami, too, is hurt. And last time I checked, Aaron Rodgers isn't. So, but Aaron Rodgers don't block. Remember when I talked about that not so step it up unit? Well, the Jets was up there. So, yeah, I like what Bo Nix is doing, because, I mean, he ain't Jaden Daniels. He don't have to be, right? He ain't Caleb Williams. He don't have to be. But he's winning games. And what builds confidence in a player? Winning. Because, yes, we're going to go back and evaluate the tape, but it's much easier to watch the tape when I know how the tape ends. So shout out to Bo Nix, man, a guy that's, playing under Sean McVay, who has the longest plays ever. If you ever got to call a Sean McVay play, next week, I'm going to have a Sean McVay play, and I'm going to call it out. And you're going to say, what is that? It's a bunch of nonsense. It's a word salad. Just call the freaking play. But shout out to the Broncos continuing to win and helping Bo Nix, build that confidence that he's definitely going to need, as the season goes on.
And I also did not mention Titans-Dolphins as well, 31-12 Titans over the Dogs.
Listen, Mason Rudolph, I appreciate you, sir. Because, like I said, if people say they won, yeah, because Will Levis wasn't out there. It would have been I still think the Titans win. I just think it would have been an uglier route to victory if Will Levis was still in
there. Real quick, you mentioned his name earlier, which is why I'm just saying it really quick. Did you want to say something about Deshaun Watson? You kind of alluded to him earlier, or do you want to just leave that alone?
The jury is still out, and I'm gonna keep saying this, Smitty, until he proves me wrong. He was away from football for almost 3 years. Was able to sign a big contract, but I know that Nick Chubb is on his way back, who is the heart and soul of the Browns. Definitely, might be the number 1 running back in the league when he is healthy. Deshaun Watson is too much. He's consistent at being inconsistent, and I think we are expecting that Deshaun Watson of the Houston Texans to show itself. I think that person is gone, and I think for the Cleveland Browns, they're married to this guy because of the money, not because of his play. Because Deshaun Watson ain't getting it done through with his play, but hey man, maybe they know something we don't. Maybe when Nick Chubb gets back into the offense, they could be more balanced. No Njoku right now, but he just ain't getting it done. We don't even talk about Deshaun Watson at all unless we have to. That just shows you the way he's playing or not playing right now.
Well, let's get into week 5 to close out the show. As we've done now for the last few weeks, we're going to be making this the thing going forward. We're going to get our top 5 games to watch Sunday and / Monday, if that appeals to us. But first, let's get into Thursday Night Football. This game won't count with our top 5. Bucks Falcons, first game of the week for week 5 in the ATL. Another hated rivalry in the NFC South. Bucks Falcons. Both teams do not like each other. Baker Mayfield coming off a good game. Kirk Cousins still trying to get his feet under him, as we know. 4 touchdowns for Kirk Cousins on the year, 8 for Baker Mayfield. What are you looking for in this game, and who do you think is going to come out on top?
I think the Bucs are going to be a tough out for this Falcons team because you know what they are on offense. When you talk about Godwin, when you start talking about Mike Evans and Baker Mayfield, who's got a nice rapport with those receivers with a nice run game. The thing about the Falcons is the Falcons got a good defense. They really, really do. I mean, you talk about Bates and Simmons in the backfield. You talk about A.J. Terrell, who could definitely be a top 10 cornerback, top 5 when he's playing at his best. Grady Jarrett is still out there. Matt Judon has been a nice addition for this defensive line that was lacking pass rush. But it's going to come down to can this offense for the Falcons, just try to have some type of balance. You know what you got in Young Way Cool, but I mean, what is he going to be kicking 6 or 7 field goals a game for the rest of the year, which I know he wouldn't mind it. But Kirk Cousins got to find a way to build some chemistry with Drake May, right? And Kyle Pitts. It's hard to – number 8 is out there. He wore 84 in Florida. Now he wears number 8. People are saying, is his rookie year an anomaly? Is it a flash in the pan because he had Matt Ryan? Because since then, he's gotten hurt one year, and it's almost like unless they got Kyle Pitts doing things that's outside of what he does. He's a tight end. Don't try to make him a receiver. But I'm looking to see them. Bijan, can he get back to running the football? Consistently. Can the offense generate some offense and some points? Because you're not going to beat. I don't think you're going to beat the Bucs kicking field goals.
Well, let's get to our final segment of episode number 6. That is our top 5 games to watch for week number 5. I will let you go first this time, Ben, as I went first last week. So if you've got your list ready, you can start, sir.
My top 5 games. My first game, Colts versus Jaguars. Anthony Richardson going to be back in the lineup, and if he's not, you're going to have Joe Flacco to go up against, Trevor Lawrence. Listen, with the real Trevor Lawrence, please stand up, because if you keep on living in the O column, you're going to spend your whole year trying to get back to 800 or trying to make yourself look like a halfway decent football team. That is my number 1. My number 2, Browns versus the Commanders. Deshaun Watson versus Jaden Smooth Daniels. I want to see this young man and Jaden Daniels continue to show a lot of promise, to show a lot of strides. Because I think he's going to be really, really good, because I think he has an offense that's built for what he does with Cliff Kingsbury. My number 3, Panthers versus Bears, right? I want to see this Panthers team, versus this Bears defense. I want to see Andy Dalton and company go out and keep on getting better, with an offense that's found its rhythm. You talk about Chuba, you talk about Deontay, right? You talk about Leggett, you talk about, what Andy Dalton is doing. With a Bears defense, it's not going to make life easy. Now, you're not going to have Shaq for Carolina, but can they still go out there and put pressure on Caleb Williams and make him make quicker decisions? He's been playing better, but nothing to go home about. My number 4, Jets versus Vikings. I want to see Sam Darnold continue doing what he's doing and looking across and seeing. Listen, Sam Darnold said, "Hey man, that's my former team, right? The Jets, they didn't want, but they want Aaron Donald. They want they want Aaron Rodgers. So they want a discount double check versus the redhead that played at USC. I think it's going to be a great game because I want to see Sauce Gardner, in that defensive back to go against Justin. Listen, Sauce Gardner versus freaking Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. Let's see it. And my number 1 game, for week 5, give me the Bills versus the Texans. I think this is going to be fireworks. I do think this Bills team feeling a certain type way coming off the way they lost. I think that the Bills are going to try to let this Texas team know, listen, while you guys got a younger squad, we here to stay too. I want to see C.J. Stroud. I want to see Josh Allen. I mean, I want to see this defense though for the Texans. Look at Josh Allen and make life rough on him too. I mean, you got to. Because everybody want to talk about defense in the National Football League. Watch out for them Texans, but I am looking forward to my top 5. Once again we talking about the Colts and the Jaguars, the Panthers and the Bears, the Browns and the Commanders, the Jets and the Vikings, and the Bills and the Texans.
All right, got a couple of similarities. Actually, just one similarity. Actually, that's my number 1 game. So our game, we'll start with number 1. Our number 1 is the same, Bills Texans. I think that's going to be a highlight reel. That's going to be a great one. Absolutely dynamic. That's a shame it's a 1 o'clock game on CBS. I wish it was a Sunday night game. That would have been fire. But that means we get to watch the whole game with a fresh set of energy and good eyes. So my number one game of the week is Bills-Texans. Now, number 2 on this list, Saints-Chiefs, Monday Night Football. I want to see Derek Carr and company go to Kansas City. Can they bounce back after 2 straight losses? Can they get some mojo back? Kansas City is a tough place to play, but they got no Rashee Rice this week. They've got some they're still banged up without Isaiah Pacheco. Can the Saints go out there and hang with the Kansas City Chiefs? I think they can. Number 3 on this list. This may not be a good game to some. Ravens, Bengals. AFC North rivalry. These 2 teams hate each other. Bengals, can Joe Burrow go on a run and get this team back to almost to 500 to get to 2-3, and give the Ravens also under 500 at 2-3. They know each other well. It's going to be in the jungle. It's going to be rocking there in Cincinnati. That is game number 3. Game number 4 on this list, Packers-Rams. Jordan Love, I think, is going to be back a little fully healthier this week, going up against Sean McVay. Always a tough matchup there, schematic-wise, between Matt LaFleur and Sean McVay. They used to coach together as well, so they know each other quite well. Underrated game there in SoFi, Packers-Rams. Number 5 on this list is going to be Cardinals-49ers. And Cardinals, I want to see more out of Kyler Murray. He got embarrassed last week against his former coach. I want to see how he bounces back in Santa Clara against the Christian McCaffrey-less 49ers. Can the 49ers stand up and put something together against a division opponent? They didn't do that against the Rams. Now they got the Cardinals. They'll be 0-2 in the division if they lose this game. Something none of us would have said coming into the season. And Ben, I'm ad-libbing here for the listeners, just for some humor here. My toilet bowl of the week, that corner TV game that you're not going to watch, is golf.
What'd you call the toilet? What did you who you got with the toilet bowl?
The corner TV game, the toilet bowl that no one's going to be watching, Dolphins Patriots.
Oh my God! This is going to be a pick'em game here, because here's the thing, right? Jacoby Brissett said, "Bro, if we can't find a way to get a win against the Dolphins, then why? The Titans just beat them. Jesus, we got to find a way to win." But hey, Gerard Mayo, he's trying to develop his culture out there, being the successor of Bill Belichick and Mike McDaniel. I knew how much Tua meant to this offense. I didn't know he meant this much. And like I said, when you got a quarterback that can get the ball to Tyreek, got a quarterback that can get the ball to Waddle and company, when he's not there, it's almost like, what is going on? Tyreek Hill is saying, listen, if Tyreek Hill takes a flight to Kansas City, be very, very nervous. You know what I'm saying? He shouldn't be flying out, going anywhere. But yeah, if the Patriots can't get a win against the Dolphins, they're gonna be looking at themselves saying, "Dude, we just lost to the Dolphins." Yeah. A Tua-less Dolphins, but we'll see.
All right. One last thing. I didn't mention this transaction. I don't know if you saw it, but for our listeners, and just to give them some context on just how hard it is to play in the NFL. Ben, if you don't mind giving out your age to the people that I know they can look you up. How old are you currently right now?
I'm 42.
Okay. This guy's also 42. 9-time Pro Bowler Jason Peters signing with the Seattle Seahawks, going to their practice squad.
And let me tell you about Jason Peters.
First season in the NFL.
Jason Peters was a tight end when he played at Arkansas. He was an undrafted free agent in one of the best drafts that there is, 2004. Our draft, 2004. Jason Peters has the ability to. I think Jason Peters is a future Hall of Famer. And yes, me and Jason Peters were in the same draft class. I was drafted number 40th overall. He was an undrafted free agent and went to Buffalo. Obviously, he's had a great career with Buffalo and with the Eagles. And hey, man, he's signing with the Seahawks because he can still find a way to go out there and get it done. So shout out to them 80s babies, 82 to be exact. Shout out to Jason Peters, big homie.
And that'll wrap up episode number 6 of Winning the Division. Rate, review, subscribe wherever you get your podcast. You can find us on the Tobacco Road Sports Radio YouTube channel at youtube.com/Tobacco Radio. You You can find us on the Keep Pounding Podcast Network. Also brought to you by the Fans First Sports Network. Look both of those up on X, on Twitter. You can find myself at SRyanSmith7, at BenTroupe84 on X and all the other social media platforms. And just in case you don't know, we do have our own Twitter account, Winning the Division Twitter account, at Winning Division. Go follow that. Needs some followers, so please go follow it. Subscribe on YouTube. Let us know how we're doing. Any questions that you guys want us to see or to talk about, topics you guys want us to hit, keep them coming. We want to see what you guys think. We do this for the fans. We do this for the listeners. We just love your support. Again, Ben, what do we say? You're either in the division or you're winning the division.
And for the teams we root for, we just in it right now.
That's correct.
Hey, listen, he is Smitty. I am being Troupe. Listen, we are winning the division, which means if you win the division, you got a chance to make it to the show, baby. What is the show? The show is not the Super Bowl. The show is the playoffs. Because to get to the big show, you must first be in the building. That's why. And listen, I know he say you either win the division or in the division, but make sure you pick the winning team. That will be myself and Smitty. We the winning team. No matter what you heard, is what you need to know. This is the winning team. This is winning the division. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. But do us a favor, keep listening, because we're gonna keep coming with it.